Hello and welcome. Today we're going to look at a fascinating and pretty complex worldview, one that could completely turn our everyday lives upside down. So let's dive right in. First off, what's the core idea? Imagine for a moment that our Earth isn't just our home. No, it's the primary battlefield in a massive cosmic conflict. And us? Well, humanity is stuck right in the middle of it without even realizing it. That's the intense premise from which we'll be looking at everything else. Okay, to help us navigate all this, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with Battlefield Earth, then move on to the invisible weapons, the auditory battlefield, the enemy's tactics, and finally, we'll look at how knowledge becomes resistance. Alright, let's jump into the first topic, Battlefield Earth. Forget the idea of a peaceful world where everything just kind of potters along. According to this teaching, the Earth is a hotly contested territory, and we aren't just extras in the background, we are the central figures on this giant cosmic chessboard. So the playing field is clear, but what are the weapons? This is where it gets interesting. We're not talking about tanks or bombs here. The weapons in this conflict are invisible. They don't target our bodies, but rather our minds, our emotions, our very life force. And this involves things we're all familiar with. Think about substance use, the constant flood of negative news or feelings like intense rage or paralyzing fear. These are seen as deliberately targeted tools used by a negative force to weaken us and make us malleable. And it goes even a step further. We're talking about the so-called doctrine of possession. The idea behind it is that foreign entities or spirits can enter our bodies and from there manipulate our thoughts and feelings. They might even do tangible things like hit us with that leaden, unexplainable fatigue you sometimes feel. Okay, how is that supposed to work? How can a spiritual entity like that latch on? A bridge is built, and it's a very physical one. Parasites. Yes, you heard that right. A parasite infestation in the body isn't just a medical issue here. It's seen as a physical anchor point that makes it much easier for these negative beings to interfere in our lives. Okay, so we've talked about the mind and the body. But there's another level, and this one has to do with our ears, or rather, with what we hear internally. Welcome to the auditory battlefield. An auditory battlefield, that sounds a bit weird at first, right? What is this auditory stream supposed to be? Well, it refers to sounds, noises, maybe even music that you don't hear with your physical ears, but that, come from within. And these very perceptions are said to play a crucial role. And now for the rule to interpret all of this. And it's shockingly simple. It's all about direction. Everything you seem to hear internally from the left is dangerous, hostile. Think about tinnitus, that ringing in your ear. If it's on the left, it's not a coincidence, it's an attack. Everything you perceive from the right is good, positive, safe. Left is bad, right is good. So let's recap briefly. We have invisible weapons and even a battlefield for our ears. But don't think any of this happens chaotically. Quite the opposite. There's a very clear strategic plan, a kind of enemy playbook, and that's exactly what we're going to look at now. And this is the crucial point. None of it is random. The attacks, the manipulations, it all follows clear operational protocols. That sounds almost military, doesn't it? And that's exactly how it's meant. A systematic strategy to achieve very specific goals. And these protocols are really specific. Let's look at a few examples. Take the goal of system stagnation. How is that achieved? Simple, by exploiting the human fear of change and promoting old, outdated ideas. Or the goal of infiltration and control. This relies on naivety and gullibility, as spirit beings are deployed as agents into individual group members, and with psychological manipulation, a lack of awareness, for example, is exploited. Okay, this all sounds pretty dark, and yes, unsettling. Naturally, that raises the question, are we completely defenseless against all this? The answer is no. Simply recognizing and understanding what's happening gives you an enormous advantage. The path to resistance is basically a shift in perspective that happens in 2 steps. Step 1. You stop dismissing things as coincidence. That stupid argument, the tinnitus in your left ear, the sudden sadness, all of it is interpreted as part of the bigger picture. And from there, step 2 follows almost automatically. You gain clarity and resolve, and with this determination, you can resist the manipulations. You go from a passive role to an active one. And that brings us to a final, pretty big question that you just have to let sink in. If all the problems of daily life, big and small, personal crises, social tensions, even physical ailments, if all of that isn't coincidence but rather targeted actions in an invisible war, what does that mean for how we act? How do we approach our lives then? That's a question definitely worth thinking about. Thank you.